I started using vegetable oil because it's healthy, but my joints feel worse after breakfast. That sentence wasn't filled with blame, just quiet confusion. You follow the advice. You cook with what the labels call heart healthy. You scramble eggs in the oil they told you to trust. But each morning, your knees ache, your fingers resist. You feel older than you are. And so we ask again, gently. Could it be the oil? Vegetable oil. It sounds soft, natural, even safe. But once it meets high heat, the kind we use to cook our eggs, its nature changes. A 2024 study on aging found that seniors who regularly use soybean, corn, or sunflower oil had a 41% higher risk of frailty than those who use natural fats like ghee or butter. Why? Because these oils, once heated, break down into oxysterols, oxidized compounds that behave like rust in your arteries. They inflame your blood vessels, reduce nutrient flow, and stiffen your joints long before you feel the damage. It's like watering your garden with poison. Everything looks fine until the roots begin to dry. 1. Rust in the arteries. Sometimes the real damage doesn't come from what you eat, but from how you heat it. I often remind my patients that the egg isn't the enemy. It's what sits beneath it in the pan, the oil, that decides whether your breakfast is helping your body or quietly wearing it down. You see, many oils we've grown up trusting, canola, soybean, sunflower, seem harmless at first. They're light, they're affordable, and they carry the word vegetable, which makes them feel safe. But when exposed to high heat, and especially in the act of frying or scrambling, these oils begin to change. They break down into compounds called oxysterols, tiny oxidized cholesterol particles that behave like rust inside your blood vessels. Rust doesn't scream, it doesn't wound, it just sits there, slowly tightening, stiffening your arteries, interrupting nutrient flow to your muscles, and creating a quiet fire that settles into your joints. You may not feel it at first, but over time, the body begins to whisper, in the way your knees resist rising, in the way your hands hesitate to close. This is why I guide my patients toward what I call the golden morning ritual, a new way to cook the same egg, but with gentleness as the main ingredient. Golden morning eggs. This is how I invite my patients to begin their day, not just with fuel, but with a small act of repair. Whisk 2 eggs with a pinch of turmeric. Heat 1 teaspoon of avocado oil over medium-low. Cook the eggs until the whites are set, but the yolk remains soft. Serve with lightly wilted spinach or kale. Why this works? Avocado oil holds its integrity under heat. It stays calm, just like we want our joints to feel. Turmeric brings curcumin, a compound that naturally cools inflammation. Spinach adds magnesium, the mineral that helps your muscles release and your body exhale. It's not just a recipe, it's a ritual, one that says, I'm ready to stop fighting my body. I'm ready to cook in a way that helps it return to me. Because healing doesn't always require grand change. Sometimes it begins with switching the oil and letting the egg become what it was always meant to be, a soft start to a softer day. 2. I followed the rules. Why do I hurt? You did what they told you. You bought the cooking oils labeled heart healthy. You switched from butter to margarine. You stopped eating egg yolks. You kept your meals light. You listened. And still, your joints ache. Your body stiffens in the morning. Your steps feel heavier than they used to. I meet people like you every week, thoughtful, disciplined, careful with your health. They're not reckless. They're not careless. They just followed the guidance given 20 years ago and kept following it, long after the science had quietly moved on. There's a kind of grief in that, the feeling of betrayal, not by your body, but by the advice you trusted. But this isn't a story about blame, it's a story about permission to begin again. I remember a patient named Marianne. She was 68, soft-spoken, consistent, never missed a checkup. She told me, I've been using vegetable oil since the 90s. It's what they told us to do. Her breakfast was always the same, scrambled egg whites, cooked in canola oil, on dry toast. Clean, efficient, and quietly inflammatory. Her fingers had begun to stiffen. She couldn't make a full fist in the morning. She assumed it was age. We didn't overhaul her diet. We changed one thing. We added the yolk back in. We switched her oil to grass-fed ghee. We cooked slower, lower heat, more care. 3 weeks later, she walked into my office and said, "I don't dread getting out of bed anymore." That's what healing can look like. Not dramatic, not viral, just different. A new kind of ease. So, if you've done everything right and still feel like your body is pushing back, it may not be your failure. It may be time to question the map. Because sometimes what once helped us survive isn't what helps us heal. And sometimes a new kind of softness begins, not by doing more, but by doing what feels kinder. 3. Smoking pans, misleading labels. Walk into most kitchens across the country and you'll likely find a familiar bottle beside the stove. Golden, clear, with the words vegetable oil on the label. It sits there quietly, trusted, reliable, and somehow innocent. For decades, we've been told this oil is safer, better than butter, easier on the heart, a cleaner choice for aging bodies, but few were told the full story, not on the label, not on the commercial, and certainly not when heat enters the picture. You see, many so-called vegetable oils are not made from vegetables at all. They're a blend, often including soybean, corn, cottonseed, and canola, processed under extreme pressure, stabilized with chemicals, then bottled with a soft promise. Good for your heart. But when these oils are heated, especially to frying temperatures, they become unstable. They oxidize. They release compounds that don't belong in your bloodstream. These aren't small effects. They're cumulative. Like a pan left smoking on the stove, every day adds just a little more tension to the body, a little more stiffness in the knees, a little more inflammation in the hands, a little more fatigue by noon. I've seen it too often to ignore. And yes, even olive oil, as wonderful as it is in a salad, starts to degrade when overheated in the pan. Its polyphenols, the very reason it's praised, begin to break apart past 375 degrees Fahrenheit, turning something healing into something harmful. And yet, 1 in 4 older adults still use these oils daily, not because they're careless, but because they were never told otherwise. No one said, "Your oil is quietly hurting you." No one warned, that pan that smokes before the egg hits it isn't just cooking, it's burning your better years away. This isn't about fear, it's about honesty, and about finally giving you a choice based on truth, not marketing. So take a look at what's next to your stove, not to judge yourself, but to ask, is this helping me age with strength, or have I been buying someone else's comfort at the cost of my own? Sometimes healing begins not with what you add, but with what you stop trusting. Not all healing begins with a diagnosis. Sometimes it begins in silence, in the moment you stand at the stove, holding a bottle in one hand and a habit in the other, before the egg is cracked, before the pan warms. There's already a decision happening, not just about food, but about how gently you want to treat yourself today. You see, the way we cook isn't just about nutrition. It's a form of language. The oils we choose, the heat we apply, the care we give to that first meal, they speak volumes to the body we live in. So, tomorrow morning, before you pour, pause and ask, is this oil helping me soften or hardening something I've been trying to protect? Because one egg can feed your hunger, but how you cook it might just help bring your movement back. And some mornings, that one small shift is enough to begin everything again. Give it 3 mornings. That's all I ask. Not forever. Just 3 quiet starts where the oil is clean, the heat is low, and the eggs are made with care, not speed. Let it be your pause. Let it be your experiment. Let it be your moment of kindness toward the body you've lived in for decades. Notice what happens. In your knees, in your hands, in your breath between bites. And if something shifts, even slightly, share it. Because someone else is out there still using the old oil, still waking with that same ache, still believing it's just age. They might not speak up, but your story might give them permission to hope again. So leave a comment, not to impress, but to remind someone you're not too late, you're not alone, and maybe a softer morning is already waiting inside the next pan you clean.